What is up, guys? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the perks you can buy from rivalry stations and whether or not they are worth getting. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, comment down below what you think of these perks and if you get them, and if you guys would like to use my code in the shop when getting anything. It is Evolved Jake, just like my channel name is, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So in Season 2, from the healing terminal at the rivalry station, you can buy perks, and the two we currently have in-game are one that makes it to where you mark enemies when you deal damage to them, and infinite sprint. And both of these sound absolutely incredible on paper, right? So infinite sprint was the one that interested me most, and this can be purchased for 50 rivalry coins. And I initially avoided this because somebody in my Twitch chat told me that having this and then using anything else that activates slap or unlimited sprint would break it, and you would start to run out of sprint from that point on. And this is somewhat true. The reason why this would be a huge problem is that the pizza gives slap, and overdrive grenades also give slap or unlimited sprint for a period of time. And I love using both of those. I really like using overdrive grenades, and I really like using the pizza healing item. So if those effects kind of broke the unlimited nature of this perk, it wouldn't really be worth going for. However, that's not true. I could not get it to break when using those items, even after overdrive nading several times or eating several pizza slices throughout the course of the game. My unlimited sprint was still working perfectly fine. So I don't think that it is broken from either of those actions. It is Fortnite at the end of the day, and there's always random or weird bugs with this game that can sometimes inconsistently pop up. But from my experience playing and intentionally trying to get it to happen, I couldn't get this perk to break from either of those things. I could get it to break, however, from the orange kind of pillar things that are in the Dark Dominion POI. When you run through one of those or just travel through it, you will get a period of slap normally, but doing this while you have the perk active does seem to break the perk. And then you will be able to run out of sprint for the rest of the game, despite your sprint bar still being orange. Like, it'll still show that your sprint bar is permanently orange, so like you have unlimited stamina, but you'll run out of stamina and get the kind of thing on screen saying can't sprint right now, there's no energy. So my kind of recommendation for this is that avoid those pillars, and this perk is really good. I think unlimited sprint is one of the better abilities you can have in Fortnite, because it just makes your movement really good and really consistent, and you can kind of sprint jump around as much as you want in fights without really having to worry about the stamina cost. And then, you know, just traveling from point A to point B is also really convenient and nice, but there's actual like fighting reasons why having unlimited sprint is really good. So I think this perk is really good. All you have to do is avoid those orange pillars at the Dark Dominion POI, which I think is very easily done because, you know, it's confined to one area. And then even in that POI, it's not like they're absolutely everywhere. You could travel that POI just fine without running into them. So I definitely think infinite sprint is worth getting. The marking enemies on hit I thought was pretty underwhelming, and I had high kind of hopes for it. This costs 40 rivalry coins. And you think, like, why wouldn't you want to mark enemies? This is going to be helpful whenever someone's in a bush or they try to get away from you, which will happen a lot this season because there's so much mobility. But the wording on this is kind of misleading. So you mark an enemy if you've dealt white health damage to them. Damaging their overshield or damaging their regular shield doesn't seem to mark them from having this perk active. And so you only really mark somebody if you get them really weak. And this can still be really helpful, especially if you have someone, you know, absolutely weak and they're trying to get away using mobility to reset the fight, and maybe you lose line of sight on them. Or maybe you beam somebody and get them down to white, and then you have to push them, and in that time they've repositioned. There's definitely times where it can be helpful for sure, but it's just not as helpful as the moment you deal any damage to somebody you have them marked. You know, like obviously that second way would just be more OP. It would be better. I do think that there is some instances where this marking only on white health damage could be more beneficial to you, and that would be in team game mode. So if you're playing something like duos or squads, marking an enemy when you've dealt white health to them, that's someone who's really weak, right? That person's about to go down. And so having everybody on your team know exactly which player you have, you know, one shot or very weak will make it much easier for your teammates to team shot that person and just get them out of the game and punish them while you have them weak before they're able to heal up at all, you know? And then there's also times in team game modes where people use the same skin. So if you are fighting a whole squad of players all using the same skin, and you maybe forgot which one you had weak, or you don't really know anymore because players have shifted around, having the one that you have weak be pinged from this perk would make it easier to track that sort of thing. But it's not like that is the biggest deal of all time, you know? Like, it helps, and that would be nice in those instances when it pops up. But I feel like this perk is a lot more situational than it sounds like it would be on paper. On paper, it sounds incredibly good for, especially dealing for people in bushes. That was kind of what I wanted most of it. But now it's mainly kind of used if you have someone very weak and you, like, they're getting away and maybe you would have lost track of them otherwise. In those instances, it could be really helpful. Maybe someone is weak and goes into a building or something like that. They're able to break line of sight, but it's not as busted as just, you know, simply deal damage to an enemy. So I think this one can be good, especially in team game modes. It just makes team shotting a little bit easier. It makes keeping track of who you had weak a little bit easier, but it's not as busted as I thought it would be initially. So my recommendation on these perks is, if you're playing solos, I wouldn't stress the marking one too much. It's not like it's going to hurt to have, but it's not worth the 40 coins in my opinion. In squads, it potentially could be. And then infinite sprint, I definitely want to have in solos as much as I can. Like I said, I was initially avoiding it because I thought I was going to be breaking it all the time anyways. And so I was kind of waiting to make this video to really see if it was something I wanted to use. And I feel like at this point, I'm going to be using it as much as I can. And then the marking one, I don't really see myself going for, especially if I'm going to be purchasing this every game. So if you're buying it every game, that's 90 coins to get both of them, or 50 for just the sprint. And with how I play and how consistently I do the rivalries, I feel like I'm usually able to get back 50 coins a game, or relatively there. Like, maybe we only get 3 or 4 bounties done one game, but that's still a majority of the cost of purchasing this perk regained, right? Trying to get both of them every game and do 9 rivalries or close to it every game, it definitely happens in some matches, but it's a bit more of a stretch. And I think even if you are someone who plays a little bit more reserved, the way the bounty system works, you probably complete several bounties a game anyways. There's AI players you can get bounties on that make it really easy. And then there's also going to be times where enemies get bounties on you and end up pushing you. So 50 coins does sound like a lot for an every game purchase. But with how the system works, I think you're usually going to be gaining that back every single match, or close to it, like I said, to the point where you can stay somewhat neutral on coins. If you're buying these perks and weapons every single game and upgrading weapons, that's where things can start to get really expensive. But with the 600 kind of cap, if you reach that 600 cap and don't spend, you know, very recklessly, I think you should be able to stay somewhat near the cap a majority of the time playing, and it really shouldn't be that hard to maintain the rivalry coins, especially with the exotics we have now. I feel like they're not as impactful as the pistol was, and so this sprint is probably going to be what a majority of my purchases go towards. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Let me know what you think of these perks down in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.